not just a long life, but a successful life and a life of achievement.
And actually just a really good person. You know, there's so much bad in the world. We have to actually say, look, we have had, as our head has said, somebody who's undeniably a good person. And for us to be here, this is what the Duke of Edinburgh used to call the headquarters of the family firm.
Yes.
And that she is coming home here tonight for a final night at Buckingham Palace.
I think the other important point to make here is that we are seeing all these dignitaries and the Prime Minister and other people in the military welcome her back. This is the last night the royal family gathered with the Queen themselves. Tomorrow they'll hand her over to the nation for Downing Street. I think that's a very prominent moment to family.
Squadron leader, Brydon, is looking after the caravan. But of course, we have Air Chief Marshal Sir Mike Wigton, who's presiding over this exercise, this very solemn exercise by the Royal Air Force. He's part of the welcoming party, and we just saw a glimpse of him a short while ago. He will be, I'm sure, greeting the Princess Royal when she emerges from the Globemaster when it finally finishes taxiing. And then we'll see, of course, the bearer party to bring the Queen's coffin from the bearer party from 63 Squadron, the RAF Regiment, will be charged with that duty, and what a privilege for them. It's a huge honour for them too.
It's interesting. Every military person you meet has got a story to tell about knowing the Queen. I don't think I've met anybody in the last few days who didn't seem to know the Queen. Everybody has either seen her, met her, got a story to tell. It's wonderful. I suppose in 96 years you would have touched a lot of lives. It's interesting too that we're coming to Buckingham Palace because, of course, our favourite homes were Windsor and Balmoral. This was the official headquarters. And I know that when she came to him back in 1952, she and the Duke of Edinburgh were thinking that maybe they could stay at Prime Minister Klein said, "Oh, this is the place where you've got to be seen to be in command."
He had other ideas, and of course he just recognised that the symbolism of Buckingham Palace was indivisible with the authority and the visibility of the royal family. So I think strict orders were given to move.
Yes, and it's been a royal palace since it's been a royal palace since it was Buckingham House, and was rebuilt by the architect and builder Thomas Cubitt, who by interesting coincidence was the great-great-great-grandfather of the new Queen Consort.
So this is the scene at RAF Northolt, which by the way is the oldest Royal Air Force base in the United Kingdom, and with very close ties to the royal family. The Queen has been using this airbase many times over the years on her travel, and this is the point of arrival back in London, just on the outskirts of West London, on this rather solemn evening, a rather grey evening, a rather damp evening, and the guard of honour there provided by the Queen's Colour Squadron, who are waiting as they have been for about 10-15 minutes. And there we have just a glimpse there of the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, and next to him on his right the Prime Minister Liz Truss, all waiting silently and solemnly for the aircraft to come to a full stop and for the engines to be switched off, and then of course for the bearer party to carefully and very slowly and solemnly and silently bring up the coffin bearing the Queen's body. And this really is a very big moment for so many people. It's the moment when, as Giles was saying a short while ago, it's a moment when you catch a glimpse of the coffin itself, having seen it in Edinburgh, but now seeing it not in Scotland, but in England, and within a short time we'll be back in Buckingham Palace, the scene of so many happy times and happy appearances for Her Majesty over the decades.
You mentioned the weather. It's very British weather. This is a very British way of doing things. And the transition scene.
It's a time for us all to from what this return means and to reflect too on the richness of the Queen's life and what she's contributed over the longest reign in British history. But it's a moment that will touch so many people. It's a sense of the Queen returning home. Yes, of course, she was at home in Montfort, but home in the sense of work has been Buckingham Palace. And that is the prime symbol of the Queen's station commander, just approaching the aircraft, with Captain Turia McFadden, who is accompanied with, she's with the Princess Royal, who's just emerged, that's right, from the aircraft, and Vice Admiral Timothy Lawrence. The Princess Royal, who spent quite a few days at Balmoral, and as Roya was saying just a short while ago, has been really dedicated to her mother's care. And I believe we can maybe share some of the words that
of how much her presence and contribution to our national identity and how we may have taken that for granted. She talks about how she's delighted to so many people have offered understanding to her dear brother Charles as he accepts the added responsibilities of the monarch. And she says, and to my mother, the Queen, thank you. It's a very moving statement, and I think there's something about, Princess Royal bringing her mother back, how she spent that last 24 hours with her, and is accompanying her on that final journey. It's a very, very moving statement from the Princess Royal.
Princess Royal, the hardest working member of the royal family, was on Wednesday fulfilling engagements in the Scottish Islands. She was in the Isle of Skye, so she was nearby and was able to be with her mother from Wednesday night onwards, and has been with her ever since. And two people said to me this afternoon coming through Green Park, one about the King, saying he's been every inch a king, and then he said about the Princess Royal, what a wonderful daughter.
well, the wait in silence and wait in deep respect for the Queen's coffin to be brought from the Royal Air Force aircraft by the bearer party. There we see the Air Chief Marshal, Sir Mike Wigton, just in the centre of the frame, and with the Princess Royal and her husband, Timothy Lawrence, the banner. The body of Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, emerges from the Royal Air Force plane, brought by the bearer party, the Queen's Colour Squadron, 63 Squadron of the Royal Air Force Regiment. Bearer party, done its work crisply and perfectly. And the state hearse will soon be setting off for central London. Beautiful tribute that we heard from the Princess Royal to her late mother. She brought the privilege of having spent the last 24 hours with her at Balmoral. The journey is underway. Party there, including, of course, representatives of the church, politics, and the military. Standard of the Queen's Palace Squadron, the very powerful signal of respect because it's touching the ground, something you rarely see. The journey begins towards Buckingham Palace. It should take possibly around 40-45 minutes, but clearly it's a very slow and solemn journey. The police outriders from the Metropolitan Police clearing the way. The rain is falling. The headlamps are on already. And they leave the Royal Air Force Base at Norfolk on that western approach to central London. The Princess Royal will be joining her brother, the King, back at Buckingham Palace. My colleague, Sonali Shah, has been witnessing the events there.
Hugh, as the